Hey, welcome to the end of a long and gruelling season, because this is round 33 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. We have just had the final round of Carrera Cup Deutschland, which has ended under a red flag with 3 damaged cars and a lot of liquid put down on the circuit, and that therefore needs to be attended to before the Formula 3 field is released. Now, the championship has already been won this year by Esteban Ocon. He secured that at Imola, but we still have to be decided this weekend the second place in the championship. It is between Tom Blomqvist, who's had a win this weekend, now 6 in total, and Max Verstappen, who's had a win this weekend, now 10 in total, and they go into this race split by just 2 points. The grid has on pole position Tom Blomqvist, as I say, 6 times a victor this year. Lucas Auer, with his 2 wins, lines up second on the grid. Felix Rosenqvist has had 1 win, he's third. Double winner Antonio Giovinazzi lines up 4th on the grid. Jordan King, yet to win, is 5th. The start delay board being shown, and the pit lane is going to open any second, in fact, in about 4 seconds' time. 6th on the grid is 9 times a winner Esteban Ocon. Behind him, Max Verstappen with his 10 victories, and a bit further back on the grid, 12th is Antonio Fuoco, who's had a couple of wins as well, but he also has a drop of 5 positions on this grid after yesterday he was involved in an accident towards the end of the race with Jake Dennis, and it caused a red flag. Not because it was a huge accident as such, it's just that the 2 cars ended up in difficult places, and the amount of time left in the race was less than it would have been to have a safety car period, and therefore, rather than end under the safety car, the decision was taken just to bring the race to a premature halt. So it wasn't that it was a big accident and lots of damage, it was just that the cars needed removing, but the operation would have taken longer than the time left in the race permitted, hence an early stoppage and a win yesterday for Tom Blomqvist. It was a Dragonia I Am by Carlin 1-2, in fact, because Antonio Giovinazzi finished second. It was the 4th 1-2 of the year for the Yellow Perils, the 2 KFC liveried cars, and Blomqvist came out on top. And as I say, he comes into this race now 2 points ahead of Max Verstappen, whose race 1 win at the start of yesterday was mighty impressive. In race 2, coming up from 10th on the grid, he looked a little bit underwhelming. Okay, he got 5th, but more was anticipated, and it didn't really happen. Now, the cars have been released from the pit lane, although there are 1 or 2 still there, notably the Joe Zeller racing cars. Tatiana Calderon sets off, and there is Sandro Zeller with the Swiss colours on his crash helmet, ready to hopefully leave the pit lane, which is open for 5 minutes, so he's got still 3.5 minutes to get out. The rest of the grid takes shape. This race is going to be over 22 laps. Some of the cars you'll find come down the pit lane anyway for multiple installation laps. You can do that rather than drive through the grid. You drive through the pit lane. It's another opportunity for the drivers just to get a bit more mileage in, get some warm through the tyres, or indeed scrub in a set of tyres if they are on a new set for this race. And we are 13 minutes, in fact, away from the formation lap starting. So we are nice and early, as it were, for this race with its delayed start after the dramas of Carrera Cup Deutschland just a little while ago. The championship won by Esteban Ocon, but he's not exactly been the only talking point, because although he has secured it, really, I suppose, he's been overshadowed a bit in recent weeks by Max Verstappen being signed as a Formula 1 driver for 2015. Inevitably, there is much attention surrounding the Dutch teenager and the car, which since August has been running in the Red Bull colours. He was picked up initially as part of the Red Bull driver programme, and then, within 10 days or so, announced as an STR, Scuderia Toro Rosso driver, for next year. The reason you see cars peeling off to the right is so they can do a practice start to leave the pit lane, and the drivers will do these installation laps round onto the grid, and then we get ready for 22 laps. The first race of the weekend, yesterday morning, comparable time of day, was unusually calm for a Formula 3 race around Hockenheim. I know that cynics will say, well, you can't overtake in Formula 3 anyway, but you can. We proved that in this championship, and this being a circuit where the toe matters and the width of the road helps overtaking as well, plus the nature of some of the tight, slow corners. Race 1 was surprisingly quiet. Race 2 had a lot more in it yesterday. It's been one of those weekends where, oddly, one of the most prevalent sights has been cars needing a new nose cone because of contact and or then rattling over curbs has caused damage. And we've had quite a few pit stops. Inevitably, track limits has been an issue, but actually not as much as one might have expected. Across practice and qualifying, the number of drivers having times disallowed or drivers being warned about track limits has been a very long list indeed, but I can't think we've really had very much by way of penalties come the races.
No, you're absolutely right, we haven't, and that has been perhaps surprising.
Yeah.
Do you think, a general question for you, you were saying there that how much overtaking there has been in Formula 3 this year. Do you think this season will go down as one of those as being probably one of the best seasons of Formula 3 racing that we've seen?
For my money, yes, but it's always tempting to believe it's good when you've seen so much of it and you've been more involved in it rather than reading about it from afar. But I do genuinely believe that in terms of the level of competition, the Championship or its predecessor, the Euro Series, has not been stronger because you've got top drivers. If you look down the grid, they've won titles in karting, in other single-seater categories, or they've won races in single-seaters. You look at the teams, they've all got a really impressive track record, and then you put it all on the same grid. It's no wonder that over the course of the year, one or two people have dropped out because it's so competitive, and there's no point soldiering on to finish 15th. You know, by the sheer weight of numbers, not everybody can be on the podium.
Sure.
And so it's one of those championships that has been, in many ways, for some drivers, their undoing, because it's put their ability and their reputation in context against others. And for many who have come into the championship as second or third year Formula 3 drivers, they've had this phenomenon called Max Verstappen to go up against in his first year of car racing, who's already a Grand Prix driver confirmed for next year, who's won 10 races, more than anybody else on the grid. And it's no wonder that quite a few drivers have done some head scratching and thought, exactly how good am I? And what makes him so special? You're looking, incidentally, at Stefano Colletti, who will start from the pit lane, as he has done the previous two races. Colletti here helping the Euro International team try and test parts for Macau.
Yes.
And therefore, he's quite happy to be doing that outside of any race battles and try and get some clear track space. And therefore, starting from the pit lane enables that process to be done.
Always a lot of talk at this time of the year with regards to Macau, isn't there? Which is seen, David, as very much something very, very, important and prestigious for a driver to do.
Yeah, it's like the unofficial Formula 3 World Championship, if
yes.
you like. You know, it's a unique track, and it's one where historically people from the Euro Series and the British Championship would go a bit like the old halcyon days of the Zandvoort Masters Formula 3 competition would be. Things change a bit now, and it's been announced in the last 24 hours that there will be no British Championship for next year. So really, it's an extension of the European Championship, but the nature of that track means that it is always something special, and it will be fascinating to take Ocon and Verstappen to Macau and see who comes out on top. You often get also some drivers that come back into Formula 3 for that one event because the prestige of winning at Macau is so good for your reputation.
Right.
So there are extra drivers just to add to the spice of that event. It will be very special indeed. But before we get to mid-November, we've got 22 laps here to go through, and with Tom Blomqvist on pole position, and he wants more wins because his career needs the momentum to go to the next stage. Lucas Auer with him at the front of the grid. Likewise, Auer is an experienced driver from the F3 Euro Series into the European Championship last year as well as this. And I think he justifiably expected more from this year. Certainly his teammate who's next on the grid, Felix Rosenqvist, did, having been the runner-up last year. Mucke has struggled, not at every race, but most, I think, with a lack of pace and a lack of ability to set the cars up properly relative to the other teams. And yesterday we were impressed by the fact that Auer looked as though he'd got a good handle on the weekend. All right, he's not been winning, but he's been up there near the front. Trouble is, he's still got problems because in both races the car stuck itself in third gear. And in yesterday's race he ran wide at the hairpin and we thought, oh, he's made a mistake. Well, he had, but because it was stuck in third gear and he couldn't slow it down anymore through the gearbox.
And yeah, we talk about that and the fact that Mucke haven't had, going into this season, you would have always said one of the favourite teams. And certainly in the likes of Auer, and perhaps more so Felix Rosenqvist, would have said one of the favourites for this season. Of course, we hadn't factored in the Verstappen phenomenon, as you have mentioned.
The Max factor.
Yes. Very good. Very good. So, race 33 then, and what a huge season it is. And it's a hard season for them, isn't it?
In terms of mileage, it works very well. Free practice, it's one long session with a break in the middle of it. One qualifying for race 1, a qualifying session for races 2 and 3. This grid is based on your second best lap time from that qualifying session, and then 3 races. So in terms of the costs, value for money element, it works for the teams. They get a lot of mileage over a weekend. They get live television coverage. There's post-produced coverage as well, highlights programs, magazine programs, and a very active media service as well to try and promote the drivers. It has been a long season, you're absolutely right, and it has been a championship year that has taken the drivers, as the title would suggest, across Europe, even into Russia as well. But some great circuits, Formula One venues and street circuits like Po, for example. The Po Grand Prix was a real hit with everybody in the paddock, and that's going to be repeated next year. Spa was a hit. That's going to be on the calendar again, for which event we know not yet, but that's going to be factored in for next year, along with 7 DTM supporting events as well, which always put the cars in front of a big crowd.
For me, standing just behind the barriers, the chicane at Norris Ring, and you watch Verstappen go through there, and a number of the F3 drivers during free practice and qualifying, which I had the privilege of watching from that point. And, you know, Norris Ring is this tight, unforgiving circuit with walls either side, isn't it? And just to see how they clatter those cars through there, a very, very sophisticated machinery, which they are wringing the neck out of. That will go down as a highlight for me. Yeah,
Po for me the same, to go and stand at the Foss chicane. It's very, very fast chicane at the top of the circuit, and it was Autosport's Marcus Simmons who said, come with me, come and have a walk.
It was him that told me to go to the chicane at Norris Ring.
Marcus knows the best
Marcus.
spots to watch from,
Yes.
And you wait and you wait and you wait, and suddenly the cars sort of crash into view. The sound you get just before you see the cars. And for lap after lap, it was so spectacular watching Verstappen, who was on the edge.
Yeah.
And Ocon would come through and look slow, but be a fraction faster in terms of a lap time. And that's another reason for me that it's been such a fascinating season, as you look at Esteban Ocon, because he's almost Alain Prost-like. He's smooth, he's fast, he's not spectacular. Verstappen is the exact opposite. And yet their lap times come out with thousands between them. It really has been a fascinating duel between these two. But Ocon, the champion, wants to bow out of his title-winning season with another victory, just to partly equal Max Verstappen's win strike, because he's got more victories than the Frenchman has now, so Esteban Ocon needs to try to equal that, but also to try and say to people going into the winter, this championship's not just about Max Verstappen. I've won it, you know. Talk about me. Give me an F1 drive.
And that actually, it must frustrate Ocon, who has done everything so very well, hasn't he? But there is no question about it. His achievements have almost been eclipsed by Max Verstappen and what has happened to Max. And, you know, there must be a sense and a feeling of frustration because Ocon could have done no more.
Exactly right. I mean, he has had occasional bad days. Spa, race 1, he got involved in an incident, for example, here back at the start of the year, running for a podium. Fuel pressure problem dropped him down the order. Then he went to the Norris Ring and didn't score, did he? Because there were accidents, there were penalties, and there were all sorts of maladies for him that weekend as well. But on the whole, yeah, Ocon has been more consistent. But Verstappen has drawn attention to himself. We are 3 minutes or so now away from getting the warming up lap underway. The grid is being cleared. You're looking at Gustavo Menezes, who also has been a driver who has yo-yoed a bit over the course of the season. He's been up and down, but Spa particularly was his standout weekend. The Emirati, Ed Jones, is one of the Carlin drivers who's had a mixed kind of season. Ran well at the start of the year. Had a couple of accidents at Po that did his back a power of no good. He's had some weekends away, come back, being quick, carrying the colours of the Dubai Autodrome as well, I noticed on his crash helmet, where he used to race karts, and the Autodrome, former home of GP2 and speed car racing. There's Roy Nissany, the Israeli driver, in the Muka Motorsport car. And he too has had an improving season, given that, as we say, that's been a team that has struggled a little bit. But go back over the history of this championship's predecessor, the Formula 3 Euro Series, and it was the same. The first year of that, Ryan Briscoe won for Prema Power Team, and Prema Power Team then had quite a few seasons in the doldrums, as ART Grand Prix or the ASM Junior Team as was, came along and won regularly. So you can't always expect a team to be right up there year after year after year.
You were mentioning just a few moments ago, as we look at Felix Morales, Team Westec of Gavin Will's team back in the top level of Formula 3 racing. Felix Morales, again, another driver that we probably expected a lot from this year. We'll start this race from P12, but you were mentioning the sad news that British Formula 3 for next year, and the success of the Formula 3 European Championship. And what surprises me, I guess, David, and you, much more fountain of knowledge with regards to Formula 3 racing, is that surely those Formula 3 domestic championships should still be there, should still be strong, but feeding into this Formula 3 European Championship?
Well, I would have thought so. Thankfully, it's not me that has to run a championship and persuade teams to come out onto the grid. I mean, Britain is confused anyway, in as much as it's had a British championship, and then it's had a club-level series for the smaller budgets and or older cars.
Yeah.
But clearly it has, over the last couple of years, really struggled. Last year, people said, OK, it's a small grid, but we're going to plug away and regroup in 2014. 2014 has had even smaller grids. And it's very hard to persuade people to come and commit to something when it's got a small grid. Everyone waits for the first person to commit, really. But the decision has been taken, as I understand it, not to continue that, at least in the short term, which is a real shame. And of course, it makes this stronger. You could argue that British single-seater racing, though, is going to replace it, because they will be the new MSA Formula, which is the equivalent of FIA Formula 4, and that is where your Carlins and your Fortex will go, now having the capacity, without having to worry about a British Formula 3 programme. So smaller cars, different engines, but still a junior single-seater category in the UK. We are about to go racing then. Is this going to be a really hectic race to round out the season, or is Tom Blomqvist going to be able to control it like he did race 2 yesterday? We will find out in a moment, because very shortly the cars are going to be released on to this warming up lap. Looking down on the grid, Dennis van der Laar's distinctive car is there. And everybody now blasts away with this last opportunity to put warmth into the tyres. So the cars turn their way through turn 1 up towards the Einfahrt Parabolica, the entry to the Parabolica, through that tight right, speed building, the road opens up. And this is a part of the circuit that the drivers head to where the toe works. If you get a good run here and dive out of the slipstream going up towards the hairpin, you can make a move. But equally, if you get it wrong, then you give an advantage to those people behind, because they can possibly take advantage of your mistakes. So it's a very important part of the lap.
And there is the hairpin. Real pinch point on this circuit as all the cars back up, and here's the grid in full. Tom Blomqvist and Lucas Auer front row. Then it's Felix Rosenqvist and Antonio Giovinazzi on the next row of the grid, with Jordan King P5 and Esteban Ocon, the champion, P6. Max Verstappen runs from P7 with Sean Galil, P8. Then Gustavo Menezes and Ed Jones is P10. The next page reveals Roy Nassani, Felix Sorales, then it's Dennis van der Laar, Joachim Kowiak, Tatiana Calderon, who shone yesterday for my money, Santino Ferrucci, Richard Goddard, Alexander Toril, then it's Coletti, Chang, Beretta, Zella, and Jake Dennis and Nick Cassidy. Jake Dennis at the back of the grid because of an engine change.
And his aggressor of yesterday, Antonio Fuoco, has withdrawn from the race. Interestingly, he'd been given a grid drop anyway for his part in the accident yesterday, but the team has elected not to run him, or he has elected not to run today. So Fuoco is a non-starter. There was a gap on the grid you saw, but that we know is Stefano Coletti starting again from the pit lane. The track here is, of course, these days the much shorter version of the Hockenheim Ring, where the cars turn right and head towards the Parabolica. In the old days, they'd keep powering on into the forest through 3 chicanes and then come back down towards the stadium. It's 4.5 kilometres long. It is a long lap, but there's a lot in it, and Max Verstappen here is going to be one to watch, starting 7th on the grid, ahead of him Esteban Ocon. Everybody in a Dallara chassis. It's not a one-make category, it's just that market forces over the years have dictated that Dallara has been the car to have. It was late 80s, early 90s that in Europe Dallara took over from Ralton Reynard as the car to have, and then in 1993, midway through the year, there was this switch from the Ralton Reynard customers in the UK to the Dallara chassis. And apart from a win or 2 from the Lola Dome in the UK, the category has never looked back. And so the likes of Martini and Rolt and others building Formula 3 cars is long gone. So you have the same chassis for everybody, but you do have the engine war between Mercedes and Volkswagen, and also in the T-Sport cars, you've got the NBE, the Neil Brown engineering engine for Spike Goddard and for Alex Toril as well. The grid is formed. That green flag at the back says that everybody has returned from the warming up lap. 5 red lights will go on. The FIA Formula 3 European Championship finale is not underway because someone's got a problem on the grid, and it means we're going to have a delayed start. Some cars have gone, others haven't. The red light stayed on. Menezes was the man that bogged down, but we're going to have, I would predict, another installation lap round to the grid, and then the start procedure all over again. Menezes bogged down, the yellow flags came out, the starter hesitated, others moved, and the red light stayed on. So the race has not officially got underway, although the clock has started. Menezes looks stalled. He's got smoke coming out of the car, black smoke as well by the look of it. The clock has just been reset, so it will be a restart, or a proper start for the second time of asking. Others dodged around the smoky Menezes, but the red lights stayed on. They never were extinguished. There, look, you can see the yellow lights come on to say aborted start, and Sven Stopper, the race director, sees the problem, so he lets the cars go from the grid round for forming up on the line once again. Menezes then gets going, ironically, but we are going to have the grid form up and the start procedure again, and this should take a lap at least off the distance.
Will Menezes be allowed to restart?
Should be. I would have thought so, because he has got going. So
and he got going before the last car had passed as well.
Exactly, so he should in that sense as well be able to keep his grid position. So we'll see what the race director does. I'm also intrigued to see whether or not they will re-grid and go start straight into the race itself, or whether we're going to have the teams allowed onto the circuit and another 10-minute countdown. So hopefully they will grid up, take 1 lap off the distance for fuel purposes, and go racing for 21 laps. Bearing in mind that this is a televised championship, although safety is a concern of the race director, so too is television slots. And so he will not want the race to delay much if he can avoid that. So we'll try again. Take 2. The field turning its way up towards the line. I just wonder whether, if Menezes feels he has a problem, he's going to pit and let the Van Amersfoort racing team have a look at that, because it was certainly a smoky car, and it wasn't encouraging smoke, was it?
No. It wasn't, the colour of which was quite alarming, wasn't it? But then, as you say, remarkably, he did get going. It seemed to clear whatever the problem was.
Strange, wasn't it?
Okay, so the car's coming back onto the grid order then, which would suggest it is going to be straight into a restart.
Yeah, I haven't yet seen anything that tells me it's going to be a lap less. I'm just looking as well for Gustavo Menezes, and he's on the grid, lining up behind teammate Max Verstappen. So everybody is there. So the grid is complete, as Dave gave it to you earlier. The teams look on, and as soon as the marshal has done his walk across the track with a green flag to say that everybody is back from the second warming up lap, the lights will go red. And now the final round of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship is go. Blomqvist gets away well, so does Lucas Auer. Switches sides, can he attack on the outside line down to turn 1? No, he can't, they almost bang wheels. Auer keeps on coming, but he runs way wide. He'll have the momentum, but Blomqvist has the race lead. Ocon skips over the curb in the background. Rosenqvist goes 3rd, Giovinazzi is 4th, Jordan King is 5th. Giovinazzi up the inside of Rosenqvist, can't quite do it. Rosenqvist gets forced out wide but keeps 3rd position, but the race leader is Tom Blomqvist, and Lucas Auer is right with him and attacking as they come up towards the hairpin. The Muka car on the outside line. Menezes has got himself ahead of Ocon as well there. Look, but the leaders are wheel to wheel, and Lucas Auer has gone through on the outside line. Can he cut across and take the line for the corner? The answer is no! Blomqvist back up the inside. Rosenqvist tries to buy into it. Jordan King on the outside line as well. It's game on for the race lead. Blomqvist is still there. Auer tries the inside, tries the outside. 3rd, side by side now as Jordan King in the blue car levels with and gets ahead of Rosenqvist, but on the outside line, can he hang on to the place? Up the inside for the race lead goes Lucas Auer, and he's done it! Finally, 3/4 of a lap in, he has gone through. Lucas Auer takes the race lead, and boy did he work hard for that.
He did, but that was absolutely blistering, wasn't it? Great stuff from Lucas Auer. What a drive. So Blomqvist relegated down the order then. And look at this battle that's going on now.
Safety car is being deployed at the end of lap 1. You can't make this up, can you? So they're going to have to slow, and that's the reason, because Felix Morales has got damage. The Puerto Rican's season ends, sadly, with a punctured tyre, look, and the car is stranded on track. The safety car will pick up the race leaders in a moment. They come over the timing line. They've all got the message, and so they slow right down. Lucas Auer leads the way. Blomqvist second, King third. Rosenqvist fourth, Giovinazzi fifth, sixth is Verstappen, Calderon is in strife as well, Ocon seventh, Gallard is eighth, Menezes is ninth, Roy Nissany is 10th, and it's time for a deep breath.
Wow.
What a lap.
What a lap that was. And here we can see it in replay, and that's...
Calderon hit Morales as the third car, Shimkoviak, I think, yes, involved in that. They got Tatiana, I'm afraid, didn't they? That was a dive up the inside that was not really on, and so 2 cars damaged. Shimkoviak will go for the pits, and that's the end of Felix Morales' season, and I fear his European career. He's already talking about going back to the USA from whence he came in single-seaters. He was discovered first by Jeremy Shaw's USA scholarship programme and came to the Formula Ford Festival and the Walter Hayes Trophy, but Felix, after racing in Formula Renault and Formula 3 in Europe, looks like he's heading back home for single-seater racing. It's a shame, but we wish him well. Tatiana Calderon's car will have some damage as well, and I think that's going to park, isn't it?
Yeah. Wow. Well, of course, that was all going on whilst we were extolling the virtues of Lucas Auer's absolute commitment to find a way past Tom Blomqvist, and he did remain supremely committed to that, didn't he? He was going to get by, come what may, and incredible resolve there shown from Lucas Auer.
And he knew he had to do it on that first lap before there was a hint of a gap opening up, and that's why he worked and worked and worked. Just to catch up on other parish news, we are down to 21 laps, not 22, because of that extra warming up lap, because of the problems on the first grid.
And here, replay then of the Auer move on Tom Blomqvist, and it was there that he finally managed to get through, but it had been corner after corner before then. Well, he had tried, and it was there that finally he got the success that arguably he deserved through that.
You know what they say, cometh the hour, cometh the man. He made it stick, didn't he? He did it. So Lucas Auer leads the way. Jules Shimkoviak with a repaired car gets back into the race, and Tatiana Calderon's season comes to a premature end, as well as the Zella Racing car will have to be taken away. So let's have a look at the start. Watch Blomqvist off the line, but look at Auer as well, because he is fully committed from that moment the lights go out to taking the lead. First of all, he switches sides, and Blomqvist here runs him wide, but Auer proves he's got the speed, because he's almost level with Tom Blom going into the corner. Slots back in behind. Then he has a look coming up towards the approach of the Parabolica. Blomqvist uncompromising, you could say, in that move, squeezing him out wide. Others run over the curb. But then here, look, Auer is ahead. He's got his nose in front, but as he breaks for the corner on the outside line, doors open. Blomqvist comes through. Jordan King in the blue car to the outside. Verstappen up to 6th. Overlooked on the first lap, really, because there's so much going on ahead. But Lucas Auer, with the drive out of the Mercedes Tribune, goes into the race lead. Well deserved, I reckon that.
I agree. And that's a replay of the instant then that Tatiana Calderon onto Morales, and Shimkoviak also involved in that. Shimkoviak able to nurse the car back to the pit lane. We've seen him in the pit lane and has rejoined. Yeah,
but punctured tyres as well as damage for Morales. It's not been his season. It promised so much. Mercedes engines, the Westech squad, experienced engineer running the car in Mick Kouros, and frustration for him. Now, Gustavo Menezes is under investigation. I'll tell you for why in a moment. We're going to go racing at the end of this lap. The safety car is going to be in this time, so we'll go back to racing this time around as the cars now turn their way in once more to the stadium at the end of the lap.
Now, after all of Lucas Auer's fantastic efforts, what he needs to do is back them up here, because Blomqvist will sniff an opportunity to come back at Auer now. And having worked so hard to put himself into that P1 position, Lucas Auer needs to back them up and get a bit of a fly here. Away he goes now, foot through the floor. Tom Blom not able to keep quite with him. He has Jordan King right behind him as well. And Lucas Auer has actually driven that to restart to perfection off the safety car lap. So here comes Lucas Auer then, that leads this with a margin over Tom Blomqvist now. So Auer goes through into turn 1. And the restart absolutely perfect. Then it's Tom Blomqvist, Jordan King. Then we see Felix Rosenqvist in P4, Antonio Giovinazzi P5. So as they head now to the Parabolica, and O'Connor's got past Max Verstappen. And there in the mix is Gustavo Menezes as well. Now, Menezes is the one that is under investigation. We'll find out why in just a few moments, but they're stacking up behind Menezes here.
Menezes under attack, as you say, coming up towards the hairpin. He turns his way through with Ed Jones gaining a position away from Roy Nissany. The regulation that Menezes is under investigation for, as the leaders head towards us with still our fending off Blomqvist, is all to do with the car having a problem on the grid. I've just read the regulation. It's a page long, so I won't bore you with it. I'm not quite sure what it is that he is deemed to have done wrong from the wording of that regulation, but clearly the officials want to investigate and just check that all is well. Blomqvist makes a mistake, runs a little bit wide, gets the line wrong coming into the stadium at the end of the lap, and that puts Jordan King right up behind him, and Felix Rosenqvist to the inside of King as well. It's 3 for second place, and look, suddenly Lucas Auer, winner here earlier on in the season, has gone. He's got a lead, and Blomqvist, he's really having to fight this car now. He's second, but under attack from his Carlin teammate Jordan King.
Menezes has got a drive-through penalty. So whatever that infringement is, it's being punished. It's being he has got a penalty.
It may be because having, as you alluded to, been the reason for the delayed start, he should have started from the pit lane. But that said, no official nor team member instructed him so to do. But a drive-through penalty is going his way for infringing Article 37.11. But having read it oh so briefly, I'm not quite sure exactly what it is that he did wrong there. However,
I would have understood that if every car had passed him and he missed his position, you know, I don't know. Now, this is where Ocon got past Max Verstappen. I mentioned the fact that Ocon had gone ahead of Max Verstappen. It's because Verstappen ran really wide there, and Ocon was able to take advantage of that. And there the Max supporters look on. And Auer he's opened up a margin now of 1.3 seconds over Tom Blomqvist. Then it's Jordan King, Felix Rosenqvist, Giovinazzi, Ocon and Verstappen. Then the top 7 at the moment, lap 4 of 21. We have 26 minutes left on the clock. And here comes the race leader. There is P2, P3 and P4 all in shot.
The only thing I can find to tally with a penalty for Menezes is the wording that if a car is immobilised, it's the duty of the marshals to push it into the pit lane. And I suspect that by Menezes firing it up and being able to drive off the grid, that is what he's done wrong.
So he's not allowed the marshals to push it?
Exactly. That's
right.
The only thing I can see in the regulation that strikes me is him possibly having done outside the wording of the regulations. But a drive-through penalty is what has been given. Whether the team is arguing that, I don't know. Just looking down the timing screen, because Menezes has not yet been in to serve it, no. So it might be that there's a discussion taking place. But anyway, the race director refers these on to the stewards judge and say, yep, that's right or wrong, and a drive-through penalty is what he is being given. It's a shame for Menezes, perhaps lucky just to be in the race after the car belched out all of that smoke, but we have up front Lucas Auer. Now, has Muka Motorsport got round this gearbox problem? 2 races, and in both it stuck itself sporadically in 3rd gear. You've got to say, it looks at the moment as though all is good for Lucas Auer. Blomqvist runs in 2nd place, Jordan King runs 3rd, Rosenqvist is 4th, 5th is Giovinazzi, 6th is Ocon, Verstappen is 7th, which is a very un-Verstappen-like run. A bit like yesterday, he's not quite sprinting up the order as you might have hoped.
No, and as you say, that's very like yesterday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, on a charge, if I may say, as we've had so much to talk about, is Jake Dennis. As on Gustavo Menezes, there is Roy Nissany. Jake Dennis up to P13.
Just looking into the pit lane, Dave, to interrupt you.
Yes.
The Deutsche Post runner has gone to Fritz van Amersfoort with a piece of paper, and I think Fritz has just signed it because there's no discussion, and the runner is heading back to race control, so they've accepted it. Menezes will have to serve this penalty now. Okay, 6 laps are done. On to lap 7. Lucas Auer leading by a 1.5 seconds. And now Tatiana Calderon.
Oh. You carry on.
Well, is under investigation for causing a collision. And this is Menezes serving the drive-through penalty. So the message has come through but I'm not quite sure what you can do to Tatiana Calderon. It's the last race, she's not in it anymore, so any sort of penalty is a bit superfluous. There is Menezes, then you can just see the smoke and to the right of the shot.
Absolutely right, it belched it out.
Absolutely.
It was like an old diesel starting up there, wasn't it?
Absolutely. But then, as the start is aborted, he is able to get going. The other thing that the regulations do ask for, as there, Verstappen launches at the inside of Ocon and goes way out wide.
Bold and ambitious and wasn't actually going to work, and that's unusual, isn't it?
Yeah, that was almost like he caught the wrong pedal. Just look at fourth place rather here. Giovinazzi against Rosenqvist. We'll come back to Menezes in a moment, but there Rosenqvist hanging onto the place. Is he going to be able to cut across? Yes, he fends off Giovinazzi. The other thing the regulations do ask for is that a driver, if he's got a problem, puts his hands in the air to warn those behind. I didn't see him do that either.
Well, I did.
Ah, okay.
I did. Right. I saw Menezes waving.
Right. Okay, so strike that from the list then.
So Tatiana Calderon is going to be reported to the stewards of the meeting for causing a collision. Now, this was the bold and ambitious move as Max Verstappen thoroughly locks up there. That flat spot, that was square now, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Like a 50p coin. I think possibly he was a bit caught out by being in the tow, and suddenly he found himself with a lot more car speed.
To try and...
Yeah, and he couldn't scrub it off, so he had to stand on the brakes, locked up, slithered up the inside, but thankfully no contact done. So, as we have Lucas Auer leading the way then, Tom Blomqvist running in second place ahead of Jordan King third. It's Rosenqvist, then Giovinazzi fighting over fourth and fifth.
The first person to be warned about track limits, because we've had so much else going on, is Nick Cassidy, rapidly followed, nonetheless, by Felix Rosenqvist.
Right. I'm glad they're being warned about track limits, in as much as it's made your screen look busy again, hasn't it now? Yes, because it was looking a bit lost. All this about Article 37.11. No thanks. You know where you are with track limits. Over them normally. So drivers working their way down to the Mercedes Tribune. Lap 8 we're on. Lucas Auer it is up front. 21.5 minutes of this 35-minute slot remaining. 21 laps, remember, because of the delayed start, which has given us much to talk about, largely thanks to Gustavo Menezes and the pit penalty. But he's back on track now, albeit a long way down the order, trying to play catch-up once again. So frustration. But it's still quite curious, because what looked like a horrible belch of diesel smoke, as you say, and yet there he has been in the race and circulating rapidly.
Do you know what? I think it was even before the smoke admitted that he was waving his hands. He was definitely waving his hands. Jake Dennis up to P10 now.
From the rear of the grid.
He's making good progress, isn't he?
Definitely. In the points, of course, as well, for being in 10th place, which is crucial for him. Yeah, good spot. So as over the line comes Lucas Auer. Blomqvist now falling back into the clutches of Jordan King. That is a track limit situation for Lucas Auer, the race leader. He's done the fastest lap of the race as well. So Rosenqvist, his teammate, you've talked about being given the driving standards flag. Could it go to Lucas Auer as well? Tom Blomqvist running in second, Jordan King running in third, and King now has done the fastest first sector of anybody in the race. Look at the blue car third, it's the Volkswagen Carlin entry. Teammate, effectively, to Tom Blomqvist, different paint schemes, but they run out of the same team. And there, again, Verstappen pulls out to have a look at the inside of Ocon, but he can't find a way by. Out of the hairpin, Verstappen has just done a personal best in the first sector, so he is closing again onto the tail of Esteban Ocon as the cars now work their way down to the Mercedes Tribune once more. Ocon likewise hustling on, closing on Giovinazzi, but Lucas Auer looks as though he's got the measure of the rest, just as we've seen in the previous two races. Once somebody hits the front, so he gets away.
So, could be King on Blomqvist here as we see two more Deutsche Post runners positively sprinting down the pit lane, so expect more news from the legal screen in moments from now.
OK, we'll cross live to you when news breaks, rest assured, as the race leaders currently come to the end of lap number 9, heading up then to past the pits. Lucas Auer heading for a third win of the season. His uncle, Gerhard Berger, who of course is the president of the FIA Single-Seater Commission, was here yesterday to present trophies. If he's here again today, I haven't seen him this morning, but I think he'd be delighted to have his nephew on the top step of the podium. Leaders go through. It's still 2 seconds, that gap hovering around the 2-second mark. Auer to Blomqvist, and then Blomqvist to King at 7/10 for second to third places as the rest of the field streams through. Jake Dennis, as you say, rounding out the top 10. There is in 13th place Michele Beretta. Behind him is Toril. Behind him is Roy Nissany. And number 10, Santino Ferrucci, who switched from the Euro International team to Fortec a few rounds ago and is going strongly He was in the wars a bit at Imola, big crash in the second race, but Ferrucci here bouncing back on a circuit he's raced on in the European Championship before. He did have some outings in the F3 Cup last year. Nissany attacks Toril, Israeli driver versus Spaniard. The Spaniard in the white car on the inside line for T-Sport just hangs onto the place, runs Nissany wide up towards the curb, and Alexander Toril will have the inside line for the next corner. Turn right into the Mercedes Tribune now, and he's got the shorter line and he's got the place, but not for long because Nissany will have the inside line for the next corner, but Toril cuts across and claims the line.
From the Deutsche Post runners then, car number 29, track limits, and car number 29 is Stefano Coletti.
Interesting. Okay, pit lane start down in 18th place. But that's only a warning, isn't it, really? Nothing about a penalty coming from that. This is the replay of Toril and Nissany. There was contact, but Roy Nissany stood his ground on the outside and was therefore able to claim the place going into the second part of the Mercedes Tribune. And then runs off the road coming into the stadium. So one up, many down. Roy Nissany off the track. All that work squandered by going off the road. So Toril stays in 14th place. And Roy Nissany back on track. More and more replays of people making mistakes. Santino Ferrucci another. So Muka Motorsport receiving documents to sign. We know that Rosenqvist was one for track limits.
Yes, so we will see. There's nothing on screen yet.
Now this is Verstappen and Ocon. Look, lap 11 we're currently on. This is the battle for 6th place. Wheels interlocked coming into the Mercedes Tribune, and Verstappen is through on the inside line. Ocon tries to stand his ground on the outside line and gets forced over the curb. Has to give way. Verstappen up into 6th. That was uncompromising. He was committed to that line. Esteban, you make your own arrangements.
You're absolutely right. Well, what a move that was. And psychologically, that's really, really good for Max, isn't it?
Yeah.
And let's see it here in replay.
That should be one of the iconic shots of this season. These two drivers, wheels interlocked virtually, coming side by side, fighting for every millimetre of road over 6th place. And Verstappen through on the inside. And we know that he is a hard racer.
Alexander Toril being shown the black and white flag for a dangerous manoeuvre. That's Alexander Toril in car number 12, who's currently running down there in P14.
Yeah, Toril, I suspect, has incurred the wrath of the officials for that battle with Roy Nissany. Remember, we saw them touching wheels a lap or two ago. As in the meantime, the leaders are currently on lap number 12 and working their way up towards the hairpin. There, Giovinazzi pulls out to have a look at Rosenqvist. I wonder whether Verstappen can get up with this battle now that he's been released from behind Esteban Ocon. You can see where the gap is, but if anybody can erode that, Verstappen is the man, isn't he?
Yes. And he has built up a bit of a margin. Now he has got past Ocon, but this is the Rosenqvist-Giovinazzi battle that we're seeing on screen at the moment. And over the last 3 laps, the difference between the two in terms of margin between each. Our leading with a 1.8 second margin over Tom Blomqvist.
It's coming down, isn't it?
Yes.
We had it at 2 seconds a lap or so ago. How much do you want to read into this? Is that Auer just driving within himself, or is this a recurrence of these little gearbox issues? Yeah.
Well, we will see if that continues to come down. I think that might answer that for us.
Indeed. Rosenqvist on the giddy limit, isn't he? Flings the car there 4th. Out of the stadium, up through the Sud curve. The leaders go through. The gap is 1.8 seconds. That last lap through, Blomqvist was quicker by 15 thousandths of a second. So it doesn't really matter much in the grand scheme of things. If he can get close enough, though, to start to apply the pressure, then it's a different situation altogether.
So, lap 12 of 21. What have we got on the clock? 14 minutes.
Going to be close, isn't it? I think it's going to be time more than laps here. Flying laps a minute and a half. They're on lap number 13 now as the cars work their way up towards the hairpin. Jordan King hasn't quite got on the back of Blomqvist in the way I thought he might. And there's one car just coming down the pit lane. Stefano Coletti it is, who may well be parking it early like he did yesterday, in as much as the testing work that he's been doing for the team, perhaps they feel now is complete. More Deutsche Post runners are sprinting down the pit lane as Rosenqvist is under attack from Giovinazzi in the yellow car, who goes to the outside line and runs out of road and was hung out to dry on the curb for quite a long time there, so he couldn't instantly flick back in behind.
Lost a lot there, didn't
he?
Giovinazzi really trying hard, and as you say, was hung out to dry and lost a huge leap of time, and is going to have to leap back into that battle now. Rosenqvist P4, Giovinazzi P5, then it is Verstappen, who is slowly but surely getting into that.
You're right, he's getting there, isn't he? Inching up, I think, onto the back, isn't he? As we have a replay here. So it's Rosenqvist on the inside. Giovinazzi tries to go around the outside. Rosenqvist runs him out to the curb, but then Giovinazzi stayed there only for a second or so before he was able to really get the line and the traction back onto the road, but that was enough to drop him away, and so 1.2 seconds back he is, and in these cars that's hard to make up unless the guy ahead of you makes a mistake. Tom Blomqvist in second place, and what we haven't yet touched on over the course of the race is where we stand for the runner-up in the championship, and effectively it is the first one over the line out of Blomqvist or Verstappen. Tom came into the race 2 points ahead. He's outscoring Verstappen again, so this is enough to give Tom Blomqvist second in the championship after a season of some highs and some lows.
Yes, and we were discussing yesterday, weren't we, almost academic to where Tom Blomqvist finishes in the championship. Black and white flag for a dangerous manoeuvre being shown to Esteban Ocon.
Interesting.
To go back to where I was with regards to Tom Blomqvist, we were discussing yesterday, P2 in the championship or not. Where does he go from here? He's not someone that is hugely well funded, unfortunately, as we also see a black and white flag for a dangerous manoeuvre being issued to Max Verstappen as well.
I wonder if that's for the same incident, the interlocking of wheels. There's me saying it's great to watch, and the stewards disagree, but perhaps they're more concerned with the safety than I am of that. Toril and Nissany just been looking at in replay, getting it together again. There is Toril in 14th place. His teammate Spike Goddard going strongly in 12th spot at the moment in the other T-Sport car. We're on lap 15, and Lucas Auer is the man in charge by 1.9 seconds. The gap hovering around that mark, so he's still looking strong, isn't he, up front, as over the timing line once again comes the pack. Auer, Blomqvist, King, Rosenqvist, Giovinazzi, Verstappen. That's the top six. David Coulthard is here, returning to the DTM. Of course, he raced in the championship for a couple of seasons, and he's going to be doing some laps in a DTM car in the lunch break, I think, but also somebody who had a very strong career in Formula 3, raced against Rubens Barrichello, for example, in the British Championship back in 1991.
Looks like he was being marched towards the podium, doesn't it? So I rather suspect we will see him making some awards up there.
Yes.
He was actually very humorous at the Red Bull Ring a couple of seasons ago when he'd actually finished his DTM career and was making DTM trophy presentations. Said, first time I've had a DTM podium.
And a trophy in his hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's Toril. Torril's gone. Yeah, so having said he was running in 14th place, not anymore, he's not. Rejoins right ahead of Roy Nissany.
Oh, that was close.
Yes, and his eyes watered, didn't it? Roy Nissany suddenly sees Toril sprint across the road. Sorry, it's not Nissany, it's Zeller that he cut up, because it was Nissany that tabbed him into the spin. There you go, wallop. So Roy Nissany escapes for now. He might be censured for that, but it was a move he tried to make. He backed out of it, but a bit half-hearted, because all that did was put him further into the side of Toril, really, rather than fully commit. So a bit clumsy, you've got to say that, from Roy Nissany, but you have to seize the opportunity, because, as we say, they're hard to overtake in these cars, so you've got to have a punt. And unfortunately, it didn't work for him. So the race leaders now are on lap number 16, and up front, Lucas Auer heading for a third victory of the season.
Well, no surprise that the investigation the incident, rather, between Roy Nissany and Alexander Toril is under investigation.
Toril has rejoined, but he's down in 17th place now, as there is Tom Blomqvist, who's still got Jordan King shadowing his every move, but King not able now to find a way up onto the back. This is the problem that you have. The closer you get running in the dirty air, it affects your aero, it makes you go slower. So if you're going to make a pass, you've got to really charge up onto the back of a car and strike straight away. You can't sit there for lap after lap in the dirty airflow. You just can't do it.
Going further back down the order, Verstappen has opened up a little bit of a margin over Ocon. But what he's not done is really encroached on the P5 place of Giovinazzi. He's a full 2 seconds behind Giovinazzi, and it's a duplicate of yesterday, isn't it, in terms of performance, really?
Yeah, yesterday, as you say, and today, Verstappen made some progress. He got so high, and then he plateaued. It's happening again. Muka Motorsport will be pleased, though, to go into the winter with a race win, and with 8.5 minutes, we start lap 17. It looks as though that win is going to go the way of Lucas Auer in what, frustratingly, has turned out to be a bit tamer than I was anticipating for the end of season.
Yes. Next to be shown the black and white flag for leaving the track with advantage is Ed Jones.
Right, OK, and Ed currently is in 9th place. Edding Jake Dennis, therefore, who was behind him in 10th spot. So Jones is ahead, so to speak. The runners are still busy up and down the pit lane. So there might be yet more to come on your judicial screen as the race leaders are turning their way out of the hairpin for the 17th time.
Now that I find really surprising from my judicial screen is the incident between car number 4, Roy Nissany, and car number 12, Alexander Toril. No further action. Forgive me, it looked clumsy. You called it clumsy.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
And it affected Toril's race.
It's a racing incident, therefore.
Clearly, yes. Well, the stewards have ruled. Who are we to argue? But yes.
Nobody.
Quite. It's a bit of a puzzler, that, in comparison with other incidents, but no action taken. So with the cars then for this final round of the championship coming down to the stadium, there is Max Verstappen, who will end the season 3rd. He will have had more wins than anybody else, 10 wins out of 33 races, and he will go into the winter with that smug smile on his face because he's a Formula 1 driver.
Absolutely.
And how he will cope next year being thrown into the piranha tank of the Formula 1 paddock is going to be fascinating, because even when he went to Spa, just for a look, having been confirmed as an F1 driver, I think he was something like 10 paces, if that, into the paddock before the film crews got to him and he was stopped for interviews. And it's a whole different ethos going into the F1 paddock. Will be so bright a spotlight turning on him. And of course, he's going to be driving for a team which you don't expect to win races. So proving how good he is really going to be tough.
Well, we have said, haven't we, that there are two things to consider. Who his teammate will be at Toro Rosso, because that will provide the benchmark. And furthermore, you say he's going into the piranha tank of media attention of the Formula 1 paddock. It's also going into a ruthless organisation that rules with a rod of iron, and if you do not perform, you are history.
Absolutely right. Yes, we know that Red Bull will drop you if you're not performing. And it will be Max's 2nd season in a car, as here is Beretta versus a very frustrated Roy Nissany for 13th place. Roy Nissany goes ahead, heading up towards the hairpin, but the gesticulation suggests that Beretta might well have been blocking a little bit aggressively on the way up towards the hairpin, but Nissany is finally through. But yes, Verstappen can only really do his best against his teammate, whoever that may be in Formula 1 next year, to underline his ability and then see where he ends up at the end of the season.
I think we both said that, you know, in an ideal world, and it's not in our gift to make the decision, probably John-Eric Verne deserves to stay there. And what it will do, it will provide a great benchmark for Max, that, wouldn't it?
I'd agree with that. Maybe that's gone through the thoughts of the Red Bull management as well. That's Nissany making that move and getting the place. So 13th, had to work hard for that, didn't he? But no, it would be fascinating to see the two Formula 3 graduates in the same team.
I have to say, my view, I think Verstappen will handle it and handle it very well.
I think you're probably going to be right about that. His dad has been there, of course, so he knows what it's like and can offer advice. But Lucas Auer and Tom Blomqvist and Jordan King, the top 3, are among those drivers who can only look wistfully at Max Verstappen and think, how I wish that were me going into Formula 1. For now, they are still arguing over the top 3 places. Lucas Auer looking good for a win. Tom Blomqvist to end the season as the championship runner-up. The other fascination is where will Esteban Ocon go for 2015. It looks, I suspect, as though GP2 would be the logical step, but for as long as the man that's 3rd in this championship is outdoing him and going into Formula 1, then it will certainly overshadow to an extent his triumph of this year. Jenson Button was 3rd in British Formula 3 and then went to Williams the year after, so Max Verstappen 3rd in Formula 3 and straight into an F1 drive. As there, he turns his way now through the approach to the stadium, sets the car up now for the Sachs Curva. He's heading up towards the end of lap number 19 of 21. and Verstappen will round out the top 6 on track and the top 3 in the championship standings.
Is it fair to offer that the comparison, though, is the fact that, and sometimes we do lose sight of this fact, this is Max Verstappen's first season in car racing?
Well, it makes everything he does more meritorious, that's for sure, doesn't it? I mean, Ocon is no slouch. He's very professional, he's very committed, he's very smooth, he doesn't often make mistakes. But there's clearly something in Verstappen that Red Bull has picked up, that he is what they want rather than the Frenchman. Ocon has already got his link with the Lotus team through its junior driver programme, but ultimately, is that as good a scheme to be connected to as the Red Bull driver programme is?
Well,
Red Bull has got 2 teams, although this year hasn't been great in F1 for the main Red Bull squad. It's got a good track record, of course, with Christian Horner, Sebastian Vettel, Adrian Newey. That axis has been so good. I know things are changing there, but even so, you might think that that's still stronger than Lotus, which you also hear stories about its financial state from time to time. Alex Torrell has just pitted, incidentally, after his rather checkered race. There is Jordan King, who is now hustling on up in second place, is he, because he's got himself up past Tom Blomqvist, and this is how he did it. It was up at the hairpin. He made the move on the inside. They almost clattered wheels, and Blomqvist, having half opened the door, suddenly realised what was going on and had to reopen it, because otherwise there'd have been contact between the 2 teammates there.
Yes, he did. He had to react to that, didn't he? Because, as you say, he left a sniff of an opportunity, didn't he? And Jordan King was going to seize that. He was always only 6 or 7 tenths behind, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And that happened whilst we were looking at something else.
So we are on the final lap of the race. 20 are done. Jordan King then, having got past Blomqvist, is released. Look, he's already opened up a gap, but the trouble is he's got 3 seconds to make up, and once more for Jordan King, it is going to be a case of so near and yet so far. He's not been a race winner, but it's going to be another second place for him, and he has had quite a lot of those over the course of the season, so it's going to be, what, a 4th, second place for him. It's good that he'll be on the podium, but I still would have expected a victory to have come from last year's British champion over the course of the season. It does illustrate, as we keep making the point, though, how tough and competitive the championship is, that somebody with his background can't even score a race victory, and it is not for the want of trying. Jordan, a good driver. Carlin, as we know, is a good team. But Lucas Auer is going to come through and take the win. It's going to be a 3rd of the season for him then. Lucas Auer for Muka Motorsport, Peter Muka's team, which also, of course, has a DTM involvement as a Mercedes squad. It's a Mercedes engine powering the car. 2nd in race 1 here, 3rd in race 2. Top step of the podium beckons in race 3. Lucas Auer turns his way then now into the stadium, into the Sachs curve now, past the grandstands, getting busier and busier as race time for the DTM final round looms. And Lucas Auer, where will he go next year? GP3 perhaps, GP2 perhaps. Can't imagine he needs another year of Formula 3. But Lucas Auer will win round 33 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Lucas Auer takes the win. Jordan King 2nd, Tom Blomqvist 3rd. That's still enough to take the runners-up spot in the championship over Max Verstappen. 4th, Felix Rosenqvist. 5th, Antonio Giovinazzi. And the max factor is 6th. Verstappen rounds out the top 6 ahead of Ocon. Sean Galisle, a good 8th. Ed Jones is set for 9th. And Jake Dennis from the back of the grid will get a point for 10th. Celebrations at Muka Motorsport. Peter Muka in the white shirt with his back to us. And the rest of the field comes across the line with a change for 10th on the last lap, because Dennis van der Laar goes ahead of Jake Dennis. So after all the hard work, race long, to get himself up into the top 10 and preserve the place on the last lap, van der Laar is ahead of Jake Dennis, who I think must have made a mistake, because 4.5 seconds is the margin.
Wow.
So he's not only lost a place, he's lost a whole chunk of time, as poor Jake. Really frustrating for him.
Gustavo Menezes, following his drive-through penalty, had managed to get back to P16. Zeller was P17, Casti 18, Chang P19, but what a drive from Lucas Auer. As we see the slow-mo replay of the checkered flag unfurled, and Lucas Auer diving towards it. And, well, that's good for Muka Motorsport as well, who have had a difficult season, haven't they? And to end the season with a victory, having seen Lucas on both the other steps of the podium over the course of the weekend, he's going to the top 1 now. Yeah,
very consistent weekend for him across the podium finishes. Tom Blomqvist has had a 3rd, a win, and a third, so he's been a podium regular as well over the course of the weekend. And what a season it has been in the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. That's the race result. Lucas Auer victorious by 3 seconds over Jordan King and Tom Blomqvist. Felix Rosenqvist fourth from Antonio Giovinazzi and Max Verstappen. Esteban Ocon seventh from Sean Gallal, Ed Jones, and then Dennis van der Laar on that last lap, getting ahead of Jake Dennis, who therefore falls back into 11th spot ahead of Spike Goddard and Roy Nissany. Michele Beretta 14th, Santino Ferrucci 15th ahead of the pitter Gustavo Menezes after his drive-through. Sandro Zella next from Nick Cassidy, Andy Chang, and then a lap down after repairs affected Jules Shimkoviak. Alex Toril we lost, Coletti we lost, Serrades we lost, Calderon we lost as well, although Toril I suspect will be classified having done 75% of the distance.
So then the marshals waving the flags then at the end of what has been a supremely exciting FIA Formula 3 European Championship. It has delivered some scintillating racing, and there's no question about that. And we are going to be seeing the final podium for that championship in just moments from now as the cars head back down the pit lane now, and the 1, 2, 3 will park up.
The teams make their way down to the Parc Fermé area. Jake Dennis already there. I think he is needed for the rookie podium. And Hockenheim looking in great condition this weekend for one of its major events. Of course, it hosts the Grand Prix, it hosts 2 DTM events. Esteban Ocon then ends the season as champion. Tom Blomqvist his runner-up, and Max Verstappen third. Lucas Auer's victory putting him fourth at the end of what has been a fascinating season, one in which we've seen reputations made and 1 or 2 reputations negatively affected.
You're right, as Auer jumps out then.
He thanks the team, pops off the Hankook on the front left, and we'll go and celebrate with the family. And Lucas Auer very shortly to make his way up onto the podium, but he makes sure that everybody who's had a part in not just engineering the car this season but getting rid of that gearbox malady overnight is thanked for their efforts.
Yes, there was one point, wasn't there, when he seemed to be just losing a bit of time to Tom Blomqvist, that we wondered whether there was going to be a recurrence of that, but there wasn't, so they have clearly solved that issue, and he's finished it in the best possible style by going to the top step of the podium, which we'll see him on in just moments from now. Auer, King and Blomqvist, the 1, 2, 3 in the race.
So Tom Blomqvist it is who comes home for third spot. It's enough to give him second in the championship, but frustration no doubt, because early on he of course was the race leader. He couldn't repel the attack of Lucas Auer, and then ultimately by running a little bit wide left the door open and enabled Jordan King to come through and take a second place of the season. King for Carlin throwing everything at this to try to get past Blomqvist early on and then go after the race leader, but it wasn't to be. And where does Jordan King go next? A third year in Formula 3. If he's one of the drivers that comes back into this championship next year, he's got to start as a possible favourite, you would say.
Absolutely. And I think he can do another year. This, though, the winner, Lucas Auer. And, well, the battle at the start of the race is one that will go down and be remembered because it was so tight. And Lucas Auer eventually winning out, and Lucas Auer goes on to take the win of what was the last race of the Formula 3 European Championship for 2014.
Still, as you say, more Formula 3 talk to come, because there will be the Macau Grand Prix at the end of the year when many of these drivers will be there for the non-championship shootout. But for now, Lucas Auer, the Austrian driver, celebrates a race win. It's not been a bad morning for Austria, because his fellow countryman Philipp Eng has been crowned champion earlier on in Porsche racing. But in single-seater terms, we know it's the French driver Esteban Ocon who is overall and, of course, rookie champion. The podium is being made ready as the parade of the manufacturer vehicles from the DTM, the Audi, BMW and Mercedes cavalcades taking place. Noisily. Noise is a big feature of the DTM finale. Everything is done noisily. Music is loud. Horns and klaxons are sounded with vigour. And very noisy racing cars all added to the atmosphere of this final major event in German motorsport for the season. So the Mucker Motorsport team is there. Max Verstappen's supporters are there because he's going to be on the rookie podium as the winner, is he not, of the rookie category. Lucas Auer, however, will be the man for the top step, and very happy he is as well. But he must also go to that podium thinking, why couldn't that have happened more often this season? 3 wins he's had, but you'd have expected more from a good driver and a top team. The Mercedes motivated man for the top step. Volkswagen drivers 2nd and 3rd, King and Blomqvist then. They will round out the podium. Verstappen, Ocon for the rookie podium. They will be there very shortly as well. 2 podium ceremonies to come. At the back of the podium, the drivers are being assembled. Peter Mucker in the white shirt leans on the barrier, ready to cheer his man to the echo when the podium gets underway. Peter himself still races. He was at the Old Timer this year in his Group 5 Zach Speed Ford Capri.
Really?
So still racing, still enjoying life, yep. And that was in something called the DRM, the Deutsche Rennsport revival. That was the sort of parallel to the Touring Car Championship of the 70s and 80s for sort of silhouette GT cars. So BMW M1s, Ford Capris, the Zach Speed Capris were always fantastic cars, and the likes of Klaus Niedwitz driving those. It's one of those that Peter Mucker has got his hands on for historic racing, and he drives it with aplomb. Lucas Auer has risen to the task of being a race winner here at Hockenheim this weekend. Round 33 to round out the FIA Formula 3 European Championship season is won by Lucas Auer. Jordan King for Carlin and for Volkswagen takes 2nd, and Tom Blomqvist is the championship runner-up. He's 3rd in the race, a race won by Lucas Auer, the Austrian. And so for Lucas Auer, the Austrian national anthem is played. He puts his Hankook cap back on, and now we'll await the trophy presentation. Hand bandaged, as it was yesterday, I notice. And Jean Alesi, himself a former DTM race winner for Mercedes, steps out to present the trophy. Of course, Canadian Grand Prix winner. He's won Formula 1 Grand Prix victory, but for Mercedes in the DTM, Jean Alesi was a winner. Mostly in the UK. He won back-to-back at Donington in his Mercedes days. So I suspect it's going to be, yes, it is, another ex-Mercedes DTM racer in David Coulthard, and of course another Formula 1 driver who will hand over the team's trophy. Handshakes to the drivers. And who is next in the roster of celebrities that have been assembled for the presentation? Jean Alesi returns to hand over the trophy to Jordan King. Jordan very happy with that 2nd place, proving that he's got the pace to run at the front, just not consistent enough to have done it race by race by race. And Tom Blomqvist will receive his trophy as well from David Coulthard. BRDC members both. The Prema Power Team guys look on because their man will be for the top step of the rookie podium as everybody gets together. The fact that David is in overalls does suggest he's going to be doing some laps in a DTM car at the lunch break. Jean Alesi's attire suggests he's off for lunch. He's not interested in getting back into a racing car necessarily, but we shall see. However, he might need to get out of the way, and he doesn't in time of the Henkel Trocken that Lucas Auer sprays over the former teammate of his uncle Gerhard Berger from their Ferrari days and their Benetton days as well. And you can tell it's the end of the season, can't you? Because
a little bit of misbehaviour.
Absolutely.
Oh, to which it should be applauded.
Quite right too. They say from the other side of the track, out of range.
We're safe here,
in the dry. So Lucas Auer takes victory. Christoph Hever is the series promoter, and he walks out with fresh bottles of fizz that can be poured over drivers, ready for the rookie podium.
Stand by paddock as Jean Alesi on his way to lunch will be on a T-shirt blag.
Yes, absolutely right. The champion is Esteban Ocon. He is the rookie champion. He's won the rookie class so many times this year. He doesn't go to the top step. I apologise for saying that, because it will be Max Verstappen as the top rookie. But Esteban Ocon, let's not forget, in all the talk of Verstappen and race winner Lucas Auer, has won the championship, and he did it with 3 rounds to spare. He came here having won it at Imola a week ago. And yes, Esteban Ocon is our champion. Quite right, the French fans want to make the point that this is not just about the Flying Dutchman, it's about Esteban Ocon as well. And he will be on that rookie podium very shortly. The pit lane is getting busy because the pit walkabout has started here.
And the concert's not far away.
No.
To which you and I have been invited.
I can barely wait.
To perform.
Really? Right. Sweet music and all that. So it's a busy circuit, Hockenheim, which is great to see in the sunshine. But in Formula 3 terms, we are ready for our final rookie podium of the year. Max Verstappen for Van Amersfoort Racing, Esteban Ocon, and Jake Dennis. Even though he lost a place on the last lap, Jake is back on the podium. But it is a rookie class win for Max Verstappen.
Well, to be fair, there was no rudeness on the part of the boys up there on the podium in not taking their baseball caps off quite quickly. There was so much blooming noise. There was a helicopter landing,
a concert
starting,
cars
and
on track,
taxi ride starting for cars as Jean Alesi is back and presents Max Verstappen with his that's a lovely looking trophy.
Yeah, David Coulthard meets Esteban Ocon and hands over the second place trophy, shakes hands with Max and with Jake Dennis as the winner and the third place driver in the rookie category at the end of round 33. So many highlights of this season as Jean Alesi presents the trophy to Jake Dennis. We've seen the emergence, unquestionably, of some stars of the future, though.
Jake, next year, what do you think? Another year of this?
I hope so. If Racing Steps continue with him and the budget is there to come and do this, he deserves another crack at this. He'll know the circuits.
Yeah.
And he will be well worth watching. So yeah, I hope he stays on, and next year's championship will have a lot to live up to in comparison with 2014. It has been a year of tremendous racing, that is for sure. And so the drivers on the rookie podium spray the Henkel Trocken, and Esteban Ocon, remember, is there as runner-up in the rookie class in the race, but most importantly of all, he's there as the champion of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship for this season. And there might be yet more champagne to be sprayed, more photographs to be taken. I think possibly there's one now required for Esteban Ocon as the overall champion on the podium, and that's why more Henkel Trocken is being brought out, or indeed the top three in the championship, I think, is what we're going to have: Ocon, Blomqvist and Max Verstappen. So the podium is being dressed for them, and this might also fit under the general auspices of, if we've got Mr. Coulthard and Mr. Alesi to present trophies, we'll get our money's worth. we'll let them do a lot, please. So this for the end of season. I see Hans-Joachim Stuck is there as well, and he's going to be, I think, called into action as well now.
So too, that's Herman Tomczyk, isn't it?
Yes.
The president of the Motorsport ADAC.
And dad of Martin, the DTM racer. Yeah. So the championship presentation, I think we are next to witness. But we also have the winning team, Prema Power team there, Remy Reisen's team. So Esteban Ocon is the 2014 FIA Formula 3 European champion with 9 race wins to his credit. Tom Blomqvist with 6 wins is the runner-up, and 10 times a winner Max Verstappen, say it again, in his first year of car racing, ends the season 3rd in the championship. Prema Power team is the winning team as well, and Jake Dennis is on the podium as well. Why? He says, what am I doing here? Hello. Welcome back, Jake.
I just so like Jake's youthful exuberance.
Yeah.
It's just whatever.
Do I get a trophy? So he's been told to get back on the podium. He's done as he has bid. And there he is. I suspect you might find that he's 3rd in the rookie competition come the end of the season. So you've got the top 3 overall and the top 3 rookies there combined. But Esteban Ocon is the champion, for whom there is the national anthem. So the drivers on the podium at the end of the championship presentation. Prema Power Team celebrates its success, and Hans-Joachim Stuck, former Formula 1 driver, sports car legend, touring car hero, you name it, and an ambassador still for the Volkswagen Audi group. He hands over the trophy to Esteban Ocon, who of course will be appreciated at the end of the season at the FIA Awards as well. Herman Tomczyk, the president of the ADAC Motorsport division, gives Remy Roysan the trophy for Prema Power Team as the winning team. Shake hands with the drivers. Makes his way from the podium. As now the runner-up, Tom Blomqvist, receives his trophy. Hans-Joachim Stuck is the president of the DMSB. This is the hat that he wears, but there is so much in Stucky's career.
Yes.
And in fact, as he was just walking off the podium, past the pits, went one of the famous BMW M1 Pro cars that Stucky used to race as well. So there's that link even going back to the late 70s. Max Verstappen receives his trophy for third place and looks at it and says, yeah, okay, lots of flags on that. I got 10 wins, you know, more than anybody up here at the end of what has been a great season. And Esteban Ocon is the winning rookie, so he gets another trophy. We've said over the course of the season, Dave Richardson, that the excess baggage when he checks in on his way home always seems to catch him out, because normally there are two trophies, a race winner or a podium, and then a rookie win as well. Max Verstappen, as the second rookie, gets his trophy. And Jake Dennis.
And Jake, who's been waiting, hasn't he? Waiting.
Now all will become clear. Receives... There, that's Jake, yes. Hans Stuck, who's an honorary member of the BRDC, meets another member there in the person of Jake Dennis, gives him the trophy, and the Carlin guys cheer their man. So everybody gets together for yet more photographs, and it has been an amazing season. From David Addison and Dave Richardson, thanks for your company this year. We've had some cracking racing. There's more of the same in 2015.